James Ham. Let me for the, I don't know, maybe 10th or 12th time this year, a big vine bouquet to the Los Angeles Clippers, who, unlike the Lakers, they're playing without Kawhi Leonard. They're playing without Paul George. They're playing on the back of Ty Lue. And this is a team that's 2 games above 500. They're like 4.5 games above the Los Angeles Lakers in the standings right now. I just can't applaud the Clippers enough, and I know I've attempted to try here on this show. James, what the Clippers are doing this year without their big guys around is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you know what? They're a group of like really savvy veterans that play hard, that know how to play the game really well, that stick together. They are impressive. They don't mind like punching you in the face. They're a really hard-nosed group that, this is kind of like what an old school, 6, 7, 8 seed would be. It would be a team that just doesn't have the talent that they need to be a top seed, but they have enough veteran leadership and, veterans at every position to kind of hold on and hold on to that roster, that playoff spot for as long as possible until they get their stars back.
And you know what they are, James, Damian? They're tougher than what?
$2 steak.
$2 steak. Those boys are tough. You got the Marcus Morris is there, right? Not Markieff. It's Marcus, yeah. Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann is tough. Reggie Jackson, he thinks he's the best player in the league. You can't tell him that. But he's got that irrational confidence that you need in these type of situations, man. Ty Lue, one of my favorite coaches in the league, just a great coach. Those guys are tough, man. I actually like watching the Clippers compete.
Yeah, I mean, that's you get used to seeing something like that every once in a while where a team just plays sort of above their heads. But, again, they made some nice pickups. Luke Kennard is a solid player. Norman Powell is a solid player. They really do have some guys that can score. They're physical. I think that's their biggest attribute. They're just physical. And, if somehow they can get 1 or 2 of their stars back, you never know. They could surprise a couple of teams.
What's the Kings' best attribute?
Dysfunction? Yeah. I don't know.
What's this new version of the Kings' best attribute?
Actually, you know what? The new version of the Kings, they do play hard. They haven't figured out how to play together yet. They're still building chemistry. We're seeing guys like Trey Lyles step up and have like a nice impact in his first start. But you have to remember just how difficult it is to blend all of these pieces together on the fly with very little practice time. And so every time you put someone in and you say, hey, like, give us what you got, number one, you're taking someone else out of the rotation, like Mo Harkless, who didn't play last game. But you're going to have mistakes, specifically on the defensive end. You're going to have rotation mistakes. You're going to have, just overall communication mistakes. And so I think that this team I actually like where they're heading. They've played a lot better basketball over the last couple of weeks. It's just really hard to mix everything together on the fly when you're talking about, 4 or 5 new rotational players that are actually seeing major minutes.
This situation that may be brewing with Trey Lyles. Then when you were on here on Monday, you're like, yeah, I kind of want to see Trey. I don't know if he really fits with Sabonis, though. And I understood what you were saying as far as the defensive end, possibly, because, you get 2 average to below average defenders. Might be tough inside. But I thought offensively, and this was before he went for 24, and I don't expect him to average 24 or nothing like that, but I felt like he would be really good with Sabonis with his ability to shoot it. I thought he was a stretch 4, and on, what was that, when they played Monday, he kind of showed that. Do you think that's who he is, more times than not, or was that game more of an aberration? I think he could be, like, again, not 24 points a night, but that type of player in this offense. I think he could do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, he did average 10 points a game in Detroit. Look, I'm not going to get overly hyped on one game. I think that if you really look at Trey Lyles, like his body, the way that he plays the game, he might even be more of a stretch 5 in the modern NBA, not a stretch 4. I don't think he can defend, elite level power forwards. I don't even like Darius Baisley gave him trouble early. Just kept going right over the top of him and Sabonis. Like in a perfect world, the Kings would have like they can have Trey Lance on this team next year. I mean, yeah, Trey Lyles on this team
Trey
next
Lance
year.
might be able to shoot it.
Yeah, yeah, they can have Trey Lyles on this team next year for sure. I mean, he's only making like 2.6 million, but he shouldn't be a starter. I mean,
Mm.
if you're going to be good next season, he can be a player on this team. He can be a third, fourth, fifth big, but you really do need a super athletic four that can shoot the three and block shots. And you got to find that guy. And there's a bunch of them in the draft, which is a surprise because that position has kind of been lacking in the draft over the last 5 years. And the league has really been hurt by the fact that there aren't a bunch of really up and coming, like, stretch fours that can block shots and that can, play defense. But now I think we're going to see like a whole new infusion of them through this year's draft, which is good. And it doesn't matter where the Kings are drafting. If they're drafting anywhere from 1 all the way to 10, there's going to be a player that makes sense for them because that's kind of this draft. They're lucky in that this draft has very specific player types that fit what the Kings need. If you somehow move up to number 1, number 2, you got Chet Holmgren, you've got Jabari Smith Jr. But a guy like Keegan Murray is going to be around 6 through 10, and there's a lot more of them. There's a bunch of guys here that I really do think can play for the Kings alongside of Sabonis and can really open things up.
Mm.
Obviously, James, we know how important tonight's game is, and we know how important tomorrow's game could be. Focusing on tonight, this feels like a difficult matchup for the Kings. CJ McCollum's been playing pretty well. Kenny and I have spent some time today talking about the difficulties that Jonas Valanciunas has often brought to the Sacramento Kings, not even factoring in Brandon Ingram into the equation yet. Defensively, the Kings are going to have to do something. Like they got their work cut out for them on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, New Orleans is starting to piece it together a little bit, but they're just not head and shoulders above the Kings as far as talent. So I mean, for every you talk about Valanciunas, I'll say Sabonis.
How much does that change, do you think? How much does the addition of Domantas Sabonis change? Because Valanciunas has bullied the Kings now, it feels like, for a couple of years. How much does Sabonis change that?
Oh, he's not going to bully the Kings at all. I mean, he might have a good game. He might be an impactful, like 16 and 12 or something. He could go bigger than that. Yeah, he can go bigger than that. But it's not going to be the same as it was. He's not going to pull Chimezie Metu down off the rim and throw him to the ground. Right. He's not going to bully the Kings because that's not what Sabonis allows. And so I'm excited to see the matchup because the Kings have been missing this type of player for so long. And, like you talk about, CJ and you talk about Brandon Ingram. Well, you got to deal with De'Aaron Fox. You got to deal with, Harrison Barnes. And the Kings do have some guys that might be able to slow down guys like CJ. They can bring Davion Mitchell in and try to really slow him down. You're going to have some issues there with somehow trying to limit Brandon Ingram. But again, he's more of a jump shooter. He's not someone who's going to dominate you. I mean, this team would be a lot more intriguing to play with Zion. And maybe they have a little bit more momentum than the Kings, but I don't think they're better than the Kings. And to me, this is a very, very good game for the Kings to go in there. And if this is what you want, if you want to make it to the 10 seed, you have to get this win tonight, and you got to get the win tomorrow night. Yeah. And then, now we got to race. And we'll see how it all plays out in the end.
Yeah.
Can't throw Metu off the rim if Metu's not playing.
Science.
That's science.
Sabonis, physical play, being a physical guy out there. We love it. We love to see it. Damian was talking about the other day, though. Do we need to start worrying about him being in constant foul trouble? The last 3 games or so, or 2 games, it's been a little bit of an issue. And because they seem to rely on him so much to initiate the offense and everything, is there something that Alvin can do differently or Sabonis can do differently to keep him out of these situations where he's out of the game 4 minutes in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me with Sabonis and foul trouble is he's got this mindset that he has to be aggressive, right? And we saw this last time out where he was aggressive and he turned the ball over 8 times and he got in foul trouble early. He's got to rein that in a little bit, but look, he's trying to make a good first impression. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like he's just going out there and trying really hard, and he's still playing major minutes. And at the end of the day, the Kings are going to have to learn to play without him when he has to sit or when he does get injured. You have to learn how to play without this guy. And so for a little bit of this, it's okay. It's okay that he's going out of the game. I thought he did a good job of staying in the game in the second half against OKC. And even though he had a horrific game as far as turnovers, a lot of that was on his teammates forcing shots, forcing the ball into him in the post, into double teams, and not really being aware, trying to set him up too much, and not just like hitting him in the flow of the game. And he had some really bad touch fouls, some things that he just can't do. He can't chase a guard out on the perimeter and try to get him all the way out to the mid court line and force a turnover. That's just not what he needs to do. He needs to understand what his role is with this team. And that's to stay in the post and be a really strong defender in the post, which we've seen. Again, I think tonight you're going to see this is like a epic, 1997 like battle between two just
The,
bears of human beings, just
the
gigantic
Heat
human
and
beings.
the Knicks.
Yeah, yeah, like Heat Knicks, but even like Ewing and Alonzo Mourning. That's what this. It's
Alvin
two.
Gentry gonna clutch on to Sabonis's leg in the
Yeah,
middle of
just
a.
one around. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh, that's good stuff. Well, we're not gonna fall for the okey doke again, but it's kind of weird, Rashawn Holmes. Like, yeah, you left us Monday. Alvin, does it look like he's gonna go? And hey, Alvin said we're gonna go. Got Rashawn Holmes tonight. I think we spent like 10 minutes encouraging Rashawn Holmes. And then James Ham tweets again, yeah, Rashawn Holmes is out tonight.
Yeah, we're just caught in this thing where the guy's going out. He's trying to get loosened up in warm ups, and then he's coming back and saying, "Look, I just can't do it. I can't go out." And so, it's opening a door for Damian Jones, and Damian Jones is just like, "All right, fine, I'll kick that door down." I love what he's bringing to the table when he's getting an opportunity. And, the Kings have so many bigs. I don't even really think that it matters so much. It doesn't really matter if Rashawn Holmes plays tonight or not. You can go Alex Len if Valanciunas gets you in foul trouble and starts attacking you. You can do a lot of different things here if you're the Kings.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's step out. Let's regroup. There's a lot more we want to talk about. I want to talk about the Kings on the defensive end, James, and I want to talk about this incredible stretch of basketball De'Aaron Fox is playing. And I want to bring up something that you mentioned on the Kings Beat podcast that you did yesterday with Brendan Nunez regarding De'Aaron and what you hoped his focus would be this offseason. So that's all coming up. Here is D'Lo and KC return with our 1320 Kings insider James Ham on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. We'll go till 28 again here, like we did Monday.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back.
Sweet.
And then we'll let
Keep
you
having issues with my audio cutting in and out of my ears. I don't know what the deal is.
Good. It's no good.
Yeah.
No good. Brian, I don't know if you're listening. I got you. I just saw you placed another order. Seriously, man, can't thank you enough. We got something special for you on the way, man. I promise. But appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who's ordered stuff on D'Lo and KC. Thank you to everybody who's ordered the hot new Kings Beat merchandise also.
Yeah, I got shipments going out today.
Hoodie. Yeah, that's a dope ass hoodie. So do you have everything like at your house and you send it out yourself? Is that how you're doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is like there's so many hoops to jump through. I don't know if you've done this before, but like you need like a thermal printer scan, like little printing machine for labels and buying. Like it's just been like it's one thing after another. And Yeah.
We went to drop shipping. I think that's what it's called. Where like we do it through Shopify, so it doesn't get created until it's bought. Like we were originally going to do what you did, and then it kind of took off a little bit more than we expected, and it was like, okay, this isn't realistic. We've got to figure out some way to
Yeah.
do this, and we go through Shopify.
Well, I've got a 14-year-old and a 18-year-old, so like they're gonna get put to work here.
They're going to work. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, they're gonna get put to work here. Tyler, I have not made this on a hoodie yet, but I mean on a shirt yet, but I think it's coming in white hat form. So
That's a bad one.
yeah, so I think we might have this coming in a hat. We're trying to see if that will work. Yeah. Yeah, we got stuff going out. Like it's just it's so many things to deal with. Like I hate telling people that, but also, like
It's fun though.
Yeah, it is fun. No, it's fun. I got it all spread out all over a table, like ready to get go in bags and get sent out.
I'm sure
today.
Mrs. Ham finds it fun too. King's Beat merchandise lying all over the house.
Though my sons wear it all the time, which is fun. So she's fine. She's fine. Like it's just how much inventory you're gonna have and all that stuff. We're
Wait till
trying to
you
figure it out.
and I can't like I've said this before, and maybe it won't. When you go to a game and people have it on, that's a pretty awesome thing to see. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
What's cool is, well, I've never sold merch before, so like even
Same.
owning Cowbell forever, like I never it's this before. It's
Whatever
really
happened to
interesting.
that site?
Oh yeah, let's not talk
No, I'm
about
just
that.
kidding. Sorry, that
Yeah.
that was my bad.
The crazy
Bad
thing
host.
is though, like I owned Cowbell from 2010 until 2015 when I joined NBC, and there was not ways
Damn.
to monetize. 5 years, 2010 to 2015. Yeah, I was also like the stringer for NBA.com, and I had other jobs as well. But there was not a way to monetize things like there is today. It's just totally different. So
Yeah.
no, it's exciting. I'm excited about like just doing it a different way this time around. It's fun.
Yeah. It definitely is. It's fun to watch what you're doing. I mean, it's awesome to see what Deuce and Mo have built. If you're obviously the three of you willing to put I mean, even us, we have the backing of a major company, so it's not the same. But
Yeah.
man, when you know people who will put that work in, man, you see it. Whether it's you or Deuce and Mo, like it's awesome. And again, like I've always said, it speaks to this damn fan base, man. It speaks to this fan base, boy. They love their team.
Yeah. If you're
Even when their team don't love them back. They love
yeah.
them.
It really is such a great fan base, and I like it's been a long time working with this fan base. Knowing the ebbs and flows of the fan base, knowing when they're upset about things, when they need to move past things, calling them out on occasion, and doing that stuff. But realistically, I think that they deserve so much more than they get. It's rough. It's rough to watch a team that just always struggles.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my dude John Santiago, he's still around. Well, he moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but he's still around. Like I still talk to him all the time.
Good stuff.
I got people home today, so the dogs aren't going nuts.
All right, we're coming back, guys. As well as on the Odyssey app. You can watch the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live as well. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, hit the thumbs up on Facebook, YouTube, hit the heart on Twitch, hit the follow as well, and hang out. Creator of the Kings Beat and our 1320 Kings Insider, James Ham, here with us as we get ready for the Kings and the Pelicans coming up today at 5 o'clock. I did draw the parallel, James, of how funny it was to watch the president last night talk about we're getting back to normal and thinking, okay, so we've come full circle because all normalcy stopped at the Golden One Center when the Sacramento Kings were supposed to play the New Orleans Pelicans in a game that we thought was going to set the tone for the rest of the season, in the game that we thought that the winner of this really has the edge headed into way back then. It was just a playoff spot. And now here we are again in March, nearly 2 full years later, preparing for a game against the New Orleans Pelicans that's really going to set the tone, certainly for the Sacramento Kings. I think in this situation, the Pelicans, they're obviously playing ahead here a little bit, but this is again, March, the Pelicans, a big game for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, that was one of the most unique nights of my career for sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was wild because I remember I was on the set and we have a lady who always like checks tickets, but she also stands at the entrance to the set so people couldn't just like run in and jump on the set and jump in front of cameras and stuff. Every once in a while, Jim Cosmore would accidentally wander through in the middle of a live shot and then like turn into a camera like, oh no, is that on? It's like, yes, it's on and your face is right in the middle of it. But we had a lady who stands right there. She checks tickets. And I had been doing a lot of research on the pandemic, the virus that was coming, and read a couple of really interesting articles. And it started to unwind. I was watching it unwind on Twitter, and I went to the lady that was standing there, and she's touching people's phones. She's taking people's tickets. And I said, look, here's my hand sanitizer. I need you to step back into the set. Do not touch anybody's stuff. This thing is going wild. Do not touch anybody's stuff. Let them go to their seats, point, look at their phones from a couple of feet away, and then it started to spin out. So I ran down. I like went and stood by Sam Amick. We're watching down the tunnel where the Pelicans were in the locker room, and they just you saw like someone poke their head out and then go back in. It was like, okay, what's going on here? It's like I don't even know what time it was. At that point, we already knew that the game at Oklahoma City between the Jazz and the Thunder was canceled, but we were waiting to see what was going to happen. And then out of nowhere, you saw the Pelicans PR open the door and just go like this, like, we're not coming out.
Oh, wow.
And so we're sitting there like the Pelicans are not coming out. So it was right about that time we went down and we were talking to people, and we learned that one of the officials at the game that night was in the officials' locker room with the other two officials. He had officiated the game on Monday, 2 days earlier, with Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
And so there was concern of cross-contamination and everything else. It was wild, just the whole way that whole week played out, because the Kings played in Portland on Saturday. I had flown up to Portland early on Friday because I have a friend who lives in Portland who works in Seattle, which is where the outbreak really is starting. We go out to dinner with him and his family. Then I go to an arena with 18,000 people on a Saturday night, get back in a big giant Twinkie flying to Sacramento with a whole bunch of people not wearing masks or anything else. Got off the plane, went right to the arena where the Kings played a back-to-back against Toronto on Sunday, and basically Friday, Saturday, Sunday, probably exposed to 40, 50,000 people, which was typical for my job because I travel all the time. And then to watch this whole thing unfold over the course of those couple of days, it was surreal. I remember standing on the court doing, we were doing real reporting on the court, not basketball reporting, real reporting. Me and Katie Christensen standing on the court, her like a good, like wearing 6-inch heels and a good 8 inches taller than me, and I just look ridiculous standing on the court. It's almost like, can I stand 4 steps in front of her? We can do some optical illusion. Bless her heart. I mean, there's nothing she can do about being tall, and I'm not short. I'm in shoes, I'm 6 foot tall. So just really a surreal night. The only night that ever came close as far as the weirdness of being on TV and doing that stuff was the night that we got stuck doing a pregame for an hour and 45 minutes while there was a weird moisture delay in Philadelphia.
I remember that.
Wow. I remember that.
And it was me and Coase and Jerry Reynolds just sitting there riffing for for hours.
Was that when DeMarcus had the mop or like
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
And
Yeah.
Matt Barnes broke out the bottle of Hennessy in the locker room.
Well, I do know, like, Costa Kufis came out on the court, took one step and said, I'm not playing. I'm not playing at all. He said, I'm going to tear something and I'm not going to do this. This is like ridiculous. And it was something weird, like it got cold out of nowhere and someone left a door open, but the AC was on and sucked the moisture in, but didn't clear the moisture. Yeah, it was something totally bizarre that caused that, but it glazed the floor and they couldn't get it. They couldn't clean it off. Yeah, that was bizarre. But that was one of those nights where you're sitting there like, man, is this ever going to end? We kept going to Katy on the road. We went to at one point we went to Grant and Doug, like they're on the road, and we just we're trying to fill time because we knew about 20 minutes in that the game was done, but the NBA wouldn't call it, and so they can't until the NBA calls it, and the NBA is the only one that can call a game. That's what people don't understand either. Like the Stephon Clark situation outside, the NBA was there, and they said the show must go on. We're playing this game. So the only one that can, the Kings cannot cancel a game. The Philadelphia 76ers can't cancel a game. It has to be the league. And so, yeah, we were at the mercy of the league.
But the New Orleans Pelicans can just not come out for a game.
But that was different. And the Kings were all on the court like, let's do this. Are you guys forfeiting? And then after that, Lonzo Ball and one other player came out and just started like shooting layups. And then their PR came right out and pulled them in and said, no, we're done. We're out of here. Yeah, bizarre nights. Isn't it crazy how it's been 2 years? Yeah.
2 years, dude.
This is one of the random things that I always remember. But you mentioned that Toronto game before. The Kings lost. There was like a bad inbounds play at the end of the game. And my partner, Damian Barling, I remember him going like mini viral because I think he was watching the game and the plays ran and he's watching and he just slaps his microphone. And that started circulating all over the place.
I remember. I know what that was. That's because I wasn't with the bad guys at the time, so I was doing some work for an app called Hot Mic, which is it's basically like Twitch. Essentially, is what it is. Is like you watch a game and you kind of commentate over the game, and like I was doing that, and I don't know who pulled that clip and put it out there, but yeah, that
always made me laugh.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And it's funny. It goes back to like what I've told you guys a couple of times. This team has it's probably going to be 16 years that they won't make the playoffs, but it's not just like the same exact ineptness or like it's not. It's these little tiny misses because if that game gets played and the Kings win that game and there is no shutdown, I almost guarantee you that the Kings are in the playoffs that year.
I think
if they don't fire Dave Yeager, it's almost a guarantee that they're in the playoffs the next year. If they don't fire Michael Malone or if Boogie Cousins doesn't get viral meningitis, like I almost guarantee they're in the playoffs. Like it's one of those things where it's never it's a game of inches, I guess is just a different way of looking at it. It's always just misses where it's like, okay, you have some big misses.
The viral meningitis one I think is the most fascinating because one obviously led to the other, and you couldn't have fired Mike Malone if the team was doing well with the mark. I mean, maybe you could have, but it just would have been insane. And I feel like that was the one that has the most consequences.
They fired him. I think his season was 11-13 when they fired him. Mm-hmm. Cousins missed 10 games. They sat him out the final 2 games, even though he was healthy, just to make sure he was okay. And Cousins didn't know any better. He didn't know what was going on. He had no idea that they were going to fire Michael Malone. And just the way that whole thing played out, I will tell you this. Alvin Gentry was offered the lead assistant job during the summer that year. The same Alvin Gentry that's coaching the team right now, and Alvin Gentry was offered the lead assistant job and was told that 20 games into the season we're going to fire Michael Malone and you'll become the head coach and we'll have it already built into the contract. And he said, "Say what?" And they said, "Yeah, that's the plan. We're going to go 20 games into the season, fire Malone, and install you as the head coach. And we'll already build the framework into the contract. So as soon as you're the head coach, your salary goes to this and all these, And Alvin said, yeah, I'm not okay with that. And
That's disgusting.
he hung up the phone and called Michael Malone and told him. And, so again, we
Do
talk
you know,
about, go ahead.
or can you say who told Alvin that?
No, to be honest with you, I think it was Pete D'Alessandro that actually told him that, but it was an organizational decision. Just like Dave Yeager knew very well that he had 20 games to coach the team, and then at 20 games when he was winning, an article came out about how his job security was still in doubt, even though he was winning at 20 games in.
Yeah, Yeager was getting fired no matter what, and everybody knew it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he also wanted an extension. So it was like the problem there was that him and Brandon Williams couldn't get along, and Vlade couldn't fix the patch the whole thing up. And then again, you look at this season, sure does feel like there's a 20-game timer on Luke Walton. I mean, it's like
6-13. What was he? Is that what it was? 6-13.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a little bit of history repeating itself, right? It's like, I like how it's always the same thing. And you pay a coach less as an interim coach than you do as a full head coach, like in that first year. So Alvin Gentry's not getting the $5 million a year that Luke Walton was getting. He's getting less. There was a point where the Kings were paying, they're paying Tyrone Corbin. They're paying Michael Malone, Tyrone Corbin, and George Karl for one season, and then they ended up paying Corbin. Oh man, I think they had Malone, Karl, and Yeager as a head coach, all paying all three of them at the same time as well. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
If that don't get you going for Kings basketball tonight, I don't know what will.
There you go.
You're listening to D'Lo and KC and James Ham here on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge. De'Aaron Fox playing some of the best basketball of his career right now, isn't he?
Heck yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about this like right when it happened. I think this is a guy that can unlock him. This
Sabonis.
was, in Sabonis. Yeah, I think this is literally the easiest, like, fit player that you can possibly come across. And, I like watching what he's doing. Like, he needs to get better, for sure, right? He needs to improve in certain aspects of the game. He's got to get better defensively. He needs to spend the whole entire offseason working with Doug Christie. Just those two going at it, learning how to read, man on defense, just like really working hard with each other. And then he needs to work with a shot coach, and he knows that. He said, like, look, it's like, I haven't shot the ball well. I know it. I haven't shot the ball well. And we even talked about it on the podcast, like, he's averaging like 22 points a game right now. Last year he averaged, I think, 25.2. You can just grab his box score and see the 3 points he's missing. He's shooting, I think it's 1.7 fewer 3-point attempts per game. And if he was hitting them at the same clip that he did last year, which is like 32.2%, that's like 2.4 points. And then the other point that he's missing is where the league took away in the whole first half of the season. They did that whole unnatural move. They took away all the free throws. So Fox is averaging one less free throw attempt per game, and those are your points. That's it. You can easily see where his points are missing and why he's not the same player. So it's not just that he's not hitting 3-pointers this season. My biggest concern is, like, you got to keep shooting them, because that's who you are. You have to find easier ways to shoot them. You got to do a better job of hitting them. But realistically, if you're not shooting them, that's even a bigger problem. Like, because if they go under every screen instead of over every screen, then it really limits what Fox can do.
Yeah. So earlier in the show, I took a steel chair to Tyrese Halliburton inadvertently. It was one of those things where, in wrestling, I just went crazy and give him a Shinkerto and hit him in the back and everything. And then I snapped back into it. I'm like, oh, what have I done? That wasn't me, guys. That wasn't what. I don't know. I wasn't here. It was one of those things, right? While I was doing that, I talked about how. Well, actually, Kyle Draper was on, and he talked about how Fox was playing well with the offense being initiated through Sabonis, and then I brought up again that yeah, Tyrese Halliburton when Fox was playing off the ball there, it didn't look this good. It wasn't really a shot at Tyrese Halliburton, but it just seems like when you talk about unlocking Fox and him even having to play off the ball, where that offense is starting with Sabonis at the high post or in the post and in the low post, that seems to complement what Fox does off the ball more than it did any other guard, not just Tyrese Halliburton, but just another guard.
Oh, I totally agree. And for that matter, I mean, this is I know there's some huge debate right now on social media in Sacramento Kings Twitter about did the Kings just mortgage their future in this trade because number one, Sabonis, you lose 4 years basically in this transaction, and to be honest with you, once a player is traded, I rarely talk about them anymore. Like, will I go look at his box score? Sure, I will. But it's my job to like cover the team that's there. It's not to do some like weird hindsight thing all the time and basically micromanage myself into like who it is that the Kings have given up on and all this stuff. Like it's kind of time to move on, and some people don't want to do that. And even if you're gonna like take some hard line that the Kings totally blew this, man, you gotta wait. You gotta wait 3 years. You gotta wait 4 years. If the Kings don't re-sign Sabonis, then sure, this is probably gonna be a disaster. If they do re-sign Sabonis and they go to 5 or 6 playoffs, I don't see how it's that you skipped forward like 2 years in your build. And what you're talking about with Fox and even like sort of what you're talking about when it comes to Sabonis being in the post, it is so much easier to build a team around Sabonis than it is Tyrese Halliburton. And people can argue with that all they want, but if I look at this team, I say give me 4 more shooters. I need a stretch 4 that can block shots. I need a knockdown 3-point shooter at the shooting guard position. I need a 3-and-D at the 3. Like, you can see the pieces that they need so clearly when it's Fox and Halliburton. You just don't know what they need still. What you needed was Sabonis.
Yeah.
And like, unfortunately, it cost you something to get Sabonis. And what it cost you was a brilliant young player. I mean, the week before, you guys remember, I compared him to Steve Nash and to Chris Paul. Like, that's the type of player, the mental side of it. Now, will he be as good as those guys? I don't know. Will he make the Hall of Fame? I don't know. But I can tell you this, Sabonis can make the Hall of Fame. He can string together 5 more All-Star appearances, even in the Western Conference, and make the Hall of Fame. I watch him play. I can tell you that if they hit it right here, if they get the right pieces, and the right pieces are much easier now than they were before, if they get the right pieces, this thing could take off.
There's a clearer path right now.
Yeah.
That's nobody's fault or nothing towards. It's just a clearer path to what you need to do to get to where you want to go. And right now, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and we talked about this right when the trade happened. This is by far, it's not even remotely close, the best player that De'Aaron Fox has ever played with in his career. Are we supposed to ignore that? That Sabonis, he's 25, and people who want to make this argument, they just bump his age to 26 because he'll be 26 in May. He'll play all of next season at 26 years old. Like, he's a 25-year-old player. Like, the argument is very specific. You have a young player that could develop and be great. You have a player that already is really good and on the brink of being great. And if you put the right pieces around him, he easily could be great.
It wasn't just shooting that you talked about on the podcast with De'Aaron working on this offseason. You wanted him to spend the whole offseason with the old riding buddy.
Yeah, he's got to work with Doug. He's got to figure out how to defend. And I think that like he's not a horrible defender. Some people say he's a horrible. Like, look, this Kings team is a historically bad defensive team. Like, as a whole, they are a historically bad defensive team. Now, have they gotten better since they made the trade? Yes, they have, but it's like not by that much. I mean, it's baby steps. We're taking baby steps here. But when you are playing with bad defensive players, and let's not fool ourselves, Tyrese Halliburton is not a good defensive player. Buddy Hield is a horrible defensive player. Marvin Bagley got better as a defender, as like the numbers say that Marvin Bagley was actually a really solid defender this year. Just as a team defender, still not a good defender, still not a shot blocker. None of the things that you thought he would become. And so now you've made a bunch of changes. Like, look, Fox is going to be the guy who all the spotlight's on, but he has to figure out how to just move his hips the right way, move his feet the right way. That's what I see him do, this like really wide arm thing, and he's trying to stay in front of his guy, and then he someone will go in and out, and he'll just kind of lose his balance a little bit because either his base is too wide or his feet aren't staggered, whatever it is. Those are little nuances that Doug Christie can work through. He can teach him how to be a great defender, because De'Aaron has the tools to be a great defender. And when De'Aaron doesn't have to be an offensive force for 40 minutes a night, and he can actually do both sides of the court, which I think he can now because of guys like Sabonis, I think, that's the next step. You got to hit your three, and you got to get better on the defensive end.
I feel like we got a little taste of what Dante DiVincenzo could be on Monday. He looked bouncy. He had that one putback that was super impressive. Was hitting his jump shots. I know it's one game. He's been up and down all year long trying to recover back from that ankle surgery. But man, I don't need him to be this super great All NBA guy. If he can give me what he gave on Monday night more times than not, that's a player that the Kings absolutely could use having around here for this year and moving forward.
Yeah, I've been hard on him and Trey Lyles and Justin Holiday, all three of them, since coming over, just because, like, I think they need to find a way to like play to their strengths. And I thought we saw Trey Lyles do it. I think we've had games where Justin Holiday does do it as well, where he's a catch and shoot guy. He's running a bunch of Buddy Hield actions, which is strange to me why you're doing that. Like, he's not Buddy Hield, so why are you running the him coming off a high screen and shooting off balance, and it's a mess. As far as Justin Holiday, when it comes to DiVincenzo, though, I think DiVincenzo really, he wants to be something different than he is, and that's always like a problem for me. And so I want to see him do a lot more catch and shoot. I want to see him aggressive on the defensive end. I want to see him flying in for those crazy rebounds. I want to see him more as a cutter. Like, give me a bunch of cuts, because his athleticism and his ability to move off the ball is stunning. But I do not want to see off the dribble shots, off the dribble 3-point attempts, because he's not hitting them. And so I talked about it on the pod. To me, that was probably the greatest pass I've ever seen De'Aaron Fox do the other night. We saw that. That was so incredible. No one saw that coming. The only one that somehow saw it coming was a cameraman, was lined right up with it, and DiVincenzo, who was standing there waiting to catch and shoot. How many times have I talked about it this year, the Kings not having players that are ready to catch and shoot? That is where DiVincenzo can be absolutely effective and impactful and spectacular for this team. Just do the catch and shoot. Just play the crazy defense. On occasion, you're getting asked to be a point guard. Do your job there without going crazy and flinging the ball all out of bounds. Play within yourself, and I think he can be a really, really good asset for this team. If not, like, I'm going to keep comparing him and Terrence Davis and tell you that one of them makes $4 million next year and the other one's going to want a whole lot more than that. And I don't see a marketable difference between the two of them if the way that DiVincenzo's played for most of his time so far in Sacramento is what we've seen, like this off-the-dribble stuff that doesn't work.
It wasn't just Dante that played well for that second unit against Oklahoma City. It was Davion also, and Davion's a guy who I think we saw him have his first scoreless game a few nights prior. He's a guy who, a lot like this was the case with Rashawn Holmes. Of course, his back soreness has taken that out of the equation. But it was like, all right, once we get this second part of the season going, how is Davion going to fit in with this group? And not only how is he going to fit in, how is he going to carve his place out with this group. And it felt like, James, to me, that game against Oklahoma City shifted quite a bit about midway through the third quarter, but it started on the defensive end with Dante DiVincenzo and Davion Mitchell, and then that led to some good things happening on the offensive end.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was amazing to watch. I mean, what he was able to do.
Yeah, we'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
They're making like just clear, like word taking over this game defensively.
Yeah.
And we're going to make everything work on the offensive end.
Even I think you can add Fox to that too, because Fox had the wraparound pass that was incredible. Then he went down and he had the steal. And it's like, look, play the passing lanes, man. Like how that guy, again, work with the defensive back coach. Like learn how to play the passing lanes, because that's something huge that guy should be able to do, because he has elite speed, elite quickness, and he is really, really long. Now, when it comes to Davion, I think he is who he is, and that's good. That's okay. We understand who he is. Every once in a while, he tries to do too much. The ball gets a little sticky in his hands, and you got to yell at him like, "Hey, man, you don't get to dribble the ball like 14 times. That's not the way it goes." Outside of that, I think he's been really, really good and really strong, and I think he's got another level he can get to. I don't know if there's 3 more levels higher that he can get to, but he looks like a rotational player in the league for like the next decade. And the fact that he hits his 3-point shots, that he plays under control. He's got that really nice, smooth, like 18-foot jumper, the pull-up that he does. He can get to the rim. He doesn't have to do all that stuff. We still haven't seen him play off of Sabonis. And to be honest with you, I don't know if he's ever played with, I mean, not many people have played with someone like Sabonis, but I don't know if very specifically he has played with someone like Sabonis, because he comes from a 3-guard set at Baylor. He played a bunch of 3-guard sets here in Sacramento. Like, I think that there is a point where he's going to need to figure out just how to move and how to find space and to be ready to catch and shoot, because I think he can be one of the guys that picks up a huge amount of the slack as far as a 3-point shooter. And you almost forget about him, really. You almost forget about him sometimes. And then he's kind of like the young guy who, if he does something, it's cool. If he doesn't, we know he's going to do something on the defensive end. That's not going to fly in year 2 and year 3. He's got to be like an impactful player when he comes on the court every time. And I think he can be.
Right now, as of like today, would you do something different at the 2-guard spot with Justin Holiday? Would it be DiVincenzo? Would it be Davion? Or would you just keep it the same with Justin Holiday?
No, I want to see DiVincenzo start. I want to know if that's going to be a starting backcourt pairing or if that's not going to be. Because, again, I brought up Terrence Davis. Like, where does Terrence Davis fit in when he's back next year from his wrist injury? And it's going to get a little tight there, you know. And Justin Holiday is like a $6.5 million contract, totally movable. Like, if he's here or not, like, I don't think that that's totally decided at this point.
Real quick, he's under contract next year? Justin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's like qualifying offer, right?
No, Justin Holiday is under contract.
Oh, Justin
next year.
Holiday.
Yeah, no. Dante DiVincenzo is a restricted free agent if you do like I think it's a $6.6 million qualifying offer. Which, I mean, the Kings are going to do that. They like the guy. They went and traded for him specifically to go. You know, they tried to trade for him a year and a half ago, knowing that this was going to come up at some point. But when it comes to like that starting position at the shooting guard spot, number one, I'm not sure that the Kings have a starting level shooting guard right now on the roster. Now, maybe someone wants to prove me wrong there and just step up and just be spectacular. But like, I really do think that that's one position that you can improve during the offseason. And you're going to have to figure out what that means for the other guys. Does that mean that like DiVincenzo and Terrence Davis are going to have to play a bunch of 3? Are you going to do a bunch of small ball 3-guard set stuff, which I think you can do now, which you couldn't do before, because now you have a passing big man, and the passing big man works a lot better with a 3-guard set than a non-passing big man, a lob threat like Rashawn Holmes. But I kind of need to see what's going to happen here at that shooting guard spot, and if Dante can settle in and become a backcourt mate for Fox, because that looks like it's the plan moving forward, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'm crazy and they just look at him as a really solid, like rotational player that's going to get 25 minutes a night.
De'Aaron and Dante starting, Davion and Terrence off the bench.
Not bad. But
Yeah.
then you do with Justin.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't fix everything. Hey, I just
Yeah.
like work him in there somewhere. I like Justin. You mentioned him a minute ago. What you mentioned that you're doing the Buddy Hield sets with him, which doesn't make sense. What is Justin Holiday's best attribute?
He should be a 3-and-D, like a 3-and-D 2. He should be able to like go out there and defend the shooting guard position at a reasonable rate to take some of the pressure off of De'Aaron Fox as a defender, and then he should be able to hit knock down wide open threes. We haven't seen that totally. Some games he's really good, others he's not. Like he's pretty streaky, and DiVincenzo's really streaky. And again, this could be just guys trying to make first impressions and all that stuff, and then they settle into who they can be as players. But realistically, I don't. He's not someone that you're gonna worry about going into this offseason. If he's on the roster next year, he's on the roster. If not, he's part of some package that goes with Rashawn Holmes or something that goes, on a draft day trade or something like. I think he can be here next year, just like I think Trey Lyles can be here next year. At the same time, like Josh Jackson, I don't expect to be here next year. Like he's going to play out the final couple of weeks here. And if there are games where the Kings are just getting bombed, they may roll Josh Jackson out there and have him, get some run, or if they beat up on somebody. But overall, you're not game planning this roster, anything about this team for next season with those players fully in mind. DiVincenzo, yes. The rest of the guys that outside of Sabonis that you acquired, probably not.
Yeah, that's what I was actually about to ask you, because a lot of people in the chatty house have been asking, no Josh Jackson, and I don't see a spot for him moving forward, especially when, and I don't know if this guy's going to be here, but I know he's getting minutes, and I'm okay with his minutes. Jeremy Lamb. I wonder if he has a future here with the Kings, because when he's healthy, he's in the rotation, getting, good enough minutes. And I think his minutes have been fine. He hasn't been outstanding or, terrible, somewhere in the middle. But I like Jeremy Lamb out there.
Actually, I think Jeremy Lamb's been really good. Like when he's healthy. I mean, that's the problem, but that's the problem that you always have to say with Jeremy Lamb. I mean, there's a reason why he makes like $11 million this year, because he's really talented. But the problem is he's never been able to stay healthy. And even, his time in Sacramento, like he missed 2 or 3 games already. Right. And when he does play, every single time I watch him play, he's pretty much the best guy outside of Sabonis in that trade. Like he's outplayed DiVincenzo, he's outplayed, Lyles. We can talk about the one game and like he blew up, but outside of that, it's not just points. He's coming in, he's getting like 11 to 14 points, but he's also getting 5 or 6 rebounds. He's also getting like 3 or 4 assists. Right. And you're like, like I'm okay with him being here, but I don't know. I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I think he's going to go out there and find some spot that pays him a little bit more than what the Kings are looking for, just mainly because he can't stay healthy.
We're big into vibes here on the show. What's your vibe headed into tonight?
I don't know.
You've seen it all. You've covered. I thought this was the biggest game since the last time we were supposed to play New Orleans in that March game we were talking about earlier 2 years ago. And then Kenny reminded me of the San Antonio game last year, where there was a legit shot after a late run to get into the play-in, and that one didn't go our way. So how are you feeling headed into tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to get a gauge on who this team is because they're just so different. Like I don't think that we're going to see the full-on erratic Kings that we've seen the whole year, because that's not who Sabonis is. Sabonis doesn't do erratic. Sabonis like beats everybody up. He's going to get a double-double almost every game. What's he up to? 40 double-doubles on the season, something like that. He's a really, really good player. And you could even, in certain nights, he's great. And he's somebody who is just like a calming force. So I expect the Kings to come in here and go into New Orleans and give it a really good shot. And, I'm not going to like make a prediction on this team because I still don't think we have an idea of like if it really comes down to like hitting or missing shots. And if you have a good night and you hit all your shots, you're going to blow somebody up. If you don't, you're going to get thumped. And that's still the same way. Although I think the Pelicans let you stay in games either way. And again, I think it's a good matchup. Like it's going to be a fun matchup. And
there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. I still think New Orleans needs more shooters. And the Kings need more shooters, but I think it could be a little bit of a grinder game at some point. But if guys are hitting, this thing could just be like a heavyweight fight, just a knockdown drag out. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it play out. Like I want to see what they do tonight. And then if they lose tonight, you kind of just go, okay, that's probably the biggest blow. I mean, there's still 18 games in the season, but it's probably the biggest blow that you could take to your play-in chances. But then if you somehow win tonight and then you don't bring it tomorrow in San Antonio,
yeah,
then it's like, what were you doing? Yeah. So I asked Alvin Gentry about it, like this 5 games, and he said, look, man, it's one game at a time. We're so laser focused on one game. I'm like, okay.
That's the right answer. It's the right approach. We could look at it, from a different view. It's like, because we looked at the schedule earlier. Now, what I was really trying to find is how many games do you have against the Pelicans, the Trailblazers, and the Spurs coming up? And the fact is, you don't. You've got the one against the Pelicans right at the end of the year, but that's it. But then I stumbled across. I knew it was there, but for some reason it hit different today. Seeing the Denver, Utah, Boston, Phoenix, seeing
Milwaukee.
That stretch, it was like 6 games. It was like, y'all as Kenny said, y'all better win these 2, and you better win a couple we're not planning for.
That's why I wrote it on Sunday, my Sunday musings. This is it.
Kingsbeat.com.
It's just 5 games right here. Like if you don't, you got to go 4-1. You might even have to go 5-0, and you still could lose because after this, you only have 5 games left against sub 500 teams. That's it. Oof. And so you might get lucky in the last game of the season, and Phoenix shuts guys down. But even then, Phoenix is still really good. They still have this knack for playing hard, and have the Kings ever stopped their backup point guard, which is slipping my mind at this point, but. Like every time he plays the Kings, he looks like Chris Paul's like stunt double.
Oh, for the Suns.
Oh yeah, Cameron Payne. Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. Like the Kings just let that guy go wild every single time they play him. So even you get to the final game, no one is going to lay down here. No one. And the only one who might lay down is the Lakers, and they could open up another spot because now we talked about it before. The Kings were 7 games back in the loss column. Now they're 6 games. Like you win these 2 games. I don't think the Lakers are going to keep the Lakers are a mess and their schedule is absolutely horrible. And there's a possibility that they could fall out of the top 10 and not even be a play-in team. I mean, a legitimate opportunity if somebody like Sacramento gets hot and says, okay, this is who we are and we're rolling.
Yeah. We should have known it was going to hell for the Lakers. You bring up campaign. All I remember is LeBron. You ain't been good, but for you now, be humble. Come on now. Be humble. We should have known when LeBron James was chirping at campaign that this whole Lakers season has gone to hell. This whole thing has gone straight to hell.
You reap what you sow.
What LeBron saying? What do you say?
You ain't been good, but now be humble. Hey, be humble now. Be humble. Come on, kid. All right, King.
That was a surprisingly great LeBron James.
We gotta let James go. Get a damn answer from Alvin Gentry about Rashawn Holmes tonight. Don't let Alvin give you the okie doke anymore. Alvin, yes or no?
Rashawn Holmes, he's not playing. Yeah.
I was about to say he gave him an answer. Yeah, last game.
All right, Alvin.
He gave us an answer, but it was not a definitive answer. Some people ran with the definitive answer. I said something.
It sounds like.
It
Rashawn
sounds like. It sounds like. But yeah.
we took the sounds like as Rashawn is playing tonight.
You ran with it. You
I
ran
did.
with it.
I ran right to the end zone, man, for like 10 minutes. Wishing Rashawn Holmes good luck.
A
30
holding
minutes
call.
later.
A holding
Damn it,
call on the
James.
play. It's coming back.
It's coming back.
James, get to work. We appreciate you, buddy. We'll come back. Our final thoughts here. It's the Sacramento Kings versus the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll get you ready for that. Make sure you head over to the Kings Beat. Subscribe to the Kings Beat podcast as well.